Elijah Cruz was just 14, yet his soul carried the weight of someone who had seen too much and dreamed even more. In the busy streets of Manila, life was always loud, vendors shouting, jeepneys honking, people rushing. But when Elijah sang, the world seemed to pause. His voice had a warmth that cut through the noise, soft and soulful, echoing through the narrow alleys. He played an old guitar that was missing 2 strings, a guitar once owned by his late father, a street musician who had taught him that music wasn't about fame, it was about feeling. Every afternoon, Elijah sat on a cracked sidewalk beside his mother's small fruit stall. She sold bananas and mangoes, wiping sweat from her forehead while watching her son sing like he was performing at a grand concert. He often closed his eyes, losing himself in the song, his voice rising above the crowd. Sometimes people tossed coins into his small box, but more often they stopped just to listen. There was something unexplainable in his tone, something pure, something real. Tourists often passed by, drawn by his rendition of Hotel California. The first time he sang it, he didn't even know what the lyrics truly meant. He just felt the emotion, the sadness, the longing. The melody reminded him of his father's late nights, singing softly while the world slept. One afternoon, while Elijah sang under the fading sun, a middle-aged woman from California stopped in her tracks. She had tears in her eyes before the song was even halfway done. His voice seemed to reach into a place she hadn't felt in years. She asked if she could record him, and Elijah shyly nodded, continuing his song as if it were just another day. The woman uploaded the video that same evening, writing only, "This boy deserves the world." She never imagined what would happen next. Within 24 hours, the video began spreading across the internet like wildfire. It reached millions of views in just a few days. People from all over the world commented, saying his voice gave them goosebumps, that his story broke their hearts. Others searched to find who he was, wanting to help him. Elijah, meanwhile, had no idea what was happening. He didn't even own a smartphone. All he knew was that more people began coming to listen, smiling, filming him, and sometimes crying quietly. Then one morning, his mother's old Nokia phone rang. A man's voice on the other end said he was calling from America's Got Talent. Elijah froze, the fruit basket slipping from his hands. For a moment, he thought it was a prank. But the man explained that the show's producers had seen his viral video and wanted him to audition in Los Angeles. His mother's eyes filled with tears as she clasped his hand tightly. They didn't have passports. They didn't have money. They didn't even have proper clothes for such a journey. But somehow, the community came together. Neighbors donated money, a local tailor offered to make him a simple outfit, and musicians around the city donated a well-loved acoustic guitar. It was as if the entire neighborhood was rooting for him. The night before his flight, Elijah couldn't sleep. He looked out over the rooftops of Manila, whispering into the quiet air, "Dad, I'm going to sing for the world tomorrow." His mother hugged him tightly, tears falling silently onto his shoulder. The next morning, wearing a second-hand jacket and carrying his guitar in a torn case, Elijah stepped into an airplane for the first time. As the engines roared and the ground disappeared beneath him, he looked out the window at the clouds glowing with sunrise and felt his heart lift higher than ever. He wasn't just flying to America. He was flying toward a dream that once felt impossible. And deep down, he promised himself he would sing not just for himself, but for every kid who ever sang on the streets hoping someone, somewhere, would listen. The day of the audition arrived faster than Elijah expected. He stood backstage, gripping his guitar so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The bright lights, the noise of the crowd, and the enormity of it all felt overwhelming. He had never seen a stage this big before. The sound technicians were adjusting microphones, Stage managers rushed around giving directions, and all Elijah could think was how far away home felt right now. His heart pounded in his chest like a drum. When it was finally his turn, he took a deep breath, whispered a quiet prayer under his breath, and stepped onto the stage. The massive theater suddenly went still. 4 judges sat before him: Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Sofia Vergara, all looking curious about the shy, barefoot boy from the Philippines standing under the spotlight. Simon leaned forward with his usual sharp look and asked, "Hello, what's your name?" Elijah spoke softly into the microphone, his accent delicate but clear. "My name is Elijah Cruz, sir. I'm 14 years old, from the Philippines." The crowd let out an encouraging cheer. Simon asked again, "And what are you going to sing for us today?" Elijah smiled nervously, holding his guitar close. "I'm going to sing Hotel California by the Eagles." A small murmur went through the crowd. It was an ambitious choice for a kid his age. Simon raised his brows. "That's a big song," he said, his tone mixed with surprise and skepticism. Elijah nodded. "Yes, sir, but it's the song my father taught me before he passed away." The words hung in the air, touching something deep in everyone who heard them. The music started. At first his hands trembled on the strings, but once he began singing, his nerves melted away. The first few notes filled the hall with a voice so raw and soulful that even Simon looked caught off guard. Elijah sang as though every word held a memory, every chord carried his heart. The crowd grew silent, mesmerized. His voice wasn't just beautiful, it was honest. You could hear the streets of Manila in it, the struggle, the love, the loss, and the hope. By the time he reached the chorus, people were standing up, clapping in rhythm. Heidi smiled, Howie nodded along, and Simon leaned back, arms folded, his expression softening with each note. When the song ended, there was a moment of complete silence before the audience exploded into cheers. Tears filled Elijah's eyes as he saw everyone rise to their feet. Simon looked at him for a long time before speaking. "Elijah," he said, "you have no idea how special that was. You took a classic song and gave it your own soul." The crowd cheered louder. Elijah covered his face, overcome with emotion, not believing what he just heard. Simon turned to his fellow judges and smiled, then looked back at the young boy. "You know what?" he said, standing up. "I don't think we need to vote." Before Elijah could understand what was happening, Simon reached forward and slammed the golden buzzer. The golden confetti burst from the ceiling, raining down on the stage. Elijah dropped to his knees in disbelief, tears streaming down his cheeks. The crowd screamed his name as Simon walked up to the stage and gave him a hug. That was pure magic. Simon whispered, "Don't ever lose that heart." Elijah nodded, still crying, his voice trembling as he said, "Thank you," over and over. Backstage, his mother was watching on a screen, holding her hands to her mouth as tears fell freely. She had never seen her son so alive, so full of joy. The moment the confetti fell, she broke down completely, whispering prayers of gratitude. The other contestants cheered for him too, moved by his sincerity. Simon's words echoed through Elijah's mind long after the show ended. "That was one of the best performances I've ever heard on this stage." For Elijah, that moment wasn't just about fame. It was about proving that dreams born in small places can shine the brightest lights. The golden buzzer wasn't just gold. It was a promise that his father's song, his mother's sacrifice, and his own voice had finally found their way to the world. The days following Elijah's golden buzzer performance were a blur of emotions, interviews, and new experiences he never imagined. He became an overnight sensation, not just in the United States, but across the world. His story spread like wildfire. Poor Filipino kid stuns the world on AGT. TV stations in Manila played clips of him singing, and social media overflowed with messages of pride and love from Filipinos everywhere. Yet, through all the excitement, Elijah remained humble. He would call his mother every night, telling her about everything, the big stage lights, the people he met, and how nervous he still felt before every performance. His mother always told him the same thing: keep your heart the same, Anak, sing like you're still on the street. Those words became his anchor. As the competition continued, Elijah performed songs that moved millions. Each performance seemed to come from a place deeper than talent. It came from his heart, his memories, his pain, and his hope. He sang Tears in Heaven and dedicated it to his late father, and the entire audience was silent, listening as if time had stopped. Reporters wrote that his voice carried the power to heal. Simon told him during one episode, "You have something money can't buy, Soul." Elijah smiled shyly, clutching his guitar as the crowd cheered. But behind his smile, he carried the weight of responsibility. He wanted to make sure every song honored the people who helped him reach this far. When he finally got his first paycheck from the show, he didn't think about buying fancy clothes or gadgets. Instead, he sent money home to fix their leaking roof and to pay for his little sister's school supplies. Then he made a decision that shocked everyone. He told the producers he wanted to donate a portion of his earnings to build a small music center in Manila, where poor kids could learn instruments for free. The crew and judges were deeply moved. "You're the kind of person this world needs more of," Sofia Vergara said with tears in her eyes. For Elijah, it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about giving back. Every time he sang, he felt his father's presence beside him, whispering that he was proud. Then came the grand finale. The stage was bigger, brighter, and more breathtaking than anything he had ever seen. Elijah walked out, holding the same worn guitar that had carried him from the streets to the stars. The crowd erupted in applause as he took his place center stage. The lights dimmed, and the host announced that Elijah would perform an original song he wrote himself called "Wings of Home." He had written it one sleepless night in his hotel room, thinking about his parents, his country, and the long road that brought him here. The music began softly, a simple melody filled with longing. His voice came out steady, but filled with emotion. He sang about the smell of rain on the Manila streets, about his mother's prayers, about chasing dreams too far away, but never letting go. As he sang the chorus, "Now I've got wings made from every tear I cried, and they're taking me home tonight," people in the audience began wiping their eyes. Even Simon, who was known for rarely showing emotion, looked visibly moved. When the final note echoed through the theater, there was silence. For a moment, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Then the audience exploded into cheers louder than anything before. The judges stood, applauding with tears in their eyes. When the results were announced later that night, the entire world seemed to hold its breath again. The host smiled, stretching out the suspense. The winner of America's Got Talent is Elijah Cruz. Confetti burst into the air once more, golden and bright, just like that first magical night. Elijah dropped his guitar, covering his face as tears flowed freely. Simon walked up to him again, whispering, "You earned this, son." Elijah hugged him tightly, still shaking with disbelief. Cameras flashed, people cheered, and his mother appeared on screen crying tears of pure joy. From the streets of Manila to the biggest stage in the world, Elijah's voice had carried not just his dream, but the dream of every child who ever sang beneath the open sky, hoping to be heard.